How do I angle this video to not show you how messy my flat is? Happy Friday, welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. My name is Emma and I have got a cozy video for you today. The nights are getting longer and it is finally heading into my favourite time of year, cozy season. I have had enough of summer. Today I am wearing a jumper for the first time in months and I cannot tell you how thrilled that makes me. I love long, dark evenings. And to celebrate the arrival of cold, dark, everyone's miserable except for me season, I have made myself some hot Ribena. I have snuggled up on the sofa and I am going to read, over the course of this weekend, a selection of moody books to fit this time of year. I'm going to start with Hare, which I actually already started, but I haven't read very much of. I started it on my commute into work this morning. This is a kind of gothic, modern witch story set in an isolated cottage in Scotland. This is exactly what this time of year is calling for, and that's what I'm going to do with the whole rest of my evening. And because it's so dark outside, well, it's really lucky that I've got a really good light to read by. Hare is about a woman with a very mysterious past. We know from the little section that I already read from the prologue that she worked in a school, I think this was in a school, and something terrible happened that involved all of the girls in her classroom dropping to the floor. She has now run away from this past and she's come to stay at Hare House in a cottage in the grounds of this great big manor house, Hare House, but it's very, very isolated from anyone else. So the only people that she talks to are her landlord, who owns the big house, and a woman who owns one of the other cottages and who people think might be a witch. It's described in the front here as deliciously chilly and marvelously nasty. And so, to illuminate my reading of this evening, I have got a very good reading light, and this video is being sponsored by Serious Readers, who are the maker of this light. If you, like me, spend a lot of time reading books, then you should really invest in one of these to protect your eyes. Their daylight wavelength technology basically replicates the daylight spectrum as closely as possible. So it is really good for your eyes reading with that light on your book. I have to be careful not to turn my camera too much or you'll see my pile of clean laundry that I haven't put away. Serious Readers is a British company and all of the Serious Lights range, which includes the one I've got here, are all made in the UK. And the best part, the best news I have to give you is that I have a special code for you, DBMS12, as in Drinking by My Shelf 12. If you use that code when you buy any of the lights in the Serious Lights range, then you will also get a free compact light, which is a really good little bedside table light. So I am heading into a 3-day weekend and you are going to see me reading by this light for a lot of that time, starting from right now.
They want to take me away. Throw me in the
This book is properly spooky in some places. I mean, not for those of you who are seasoned horror readers, I'm sure, but it's really like giving me the chills. I switched to the audiobook temporarily to do some chores. The most eagle-eyed viewers may notice that that's a new load of laundry hanging behind me. I put the old one away. Look, my clean clothes pile is no longer there. But anyway, I'm snuggling back under my light with the physical book. Want to see another fun little thing this light can do? It's adjustable. Raph is on her way home, and you know what? She needs to hurry up because there are spooky clay figures in my book. There is writing appearing on windows. I don't know what's going on, but I don't like being alone in the house. I have word that she's 3 minutes away, so I just have to not die of fright in 3 minutes. If this is my last update of the evening, I will say I am really enjoying this book so far. It's very spooky. I can't figure out where it's going, but I have so many things I'm intrigued by. There's the mystery from our main character's past. I just realized that our main character doesn't have a name. Interesting. What is her name? Anyway, intrigued by what's going on with her, intrigued by what is going on with the landlord at the house. His younger sister is clearly very troubled. She clearly knows something that other people aren't admitting is the truth. There's loads of neighbours that we've met from the community who believe in witchcraft. There's something spooky going on. I've just got a lot of questions. Is the book going to be actually supernatural? or is it going to be like psychological? Tomorrow I'm going to a spa, which is very exciting. It's going to be a day of luxury and also will help relax me after my body tensing up from this scary, scary book this evening. But the second I'm back from the spa, I'm going to be diving right back in. And with that, it's time to turn off my light. So Raph and I just spent the whole day at a spa, which was absolute heaven. I'm feeling very pampered and kind of exhausted from doing nothing. I got a head massage, foot massage, back massage. What else did I get? A facial, went in the steam room, went in the pool. It was just heaven. We had an afternoon tea with Prosecco. And I also did a lot of reading of Hare House. I'm nearly finished. I'm going to finish it right now. I'm loving this book. It's really, really good. Definitely reading it at the spa was a less scary environment to read it in. I was probably like freaking myself out reading it home alone last night. In the spa, surrounded by people, I didn't have to get too scared. But it's got very chilling vibes. I still haven't worked out if this is or isn't going to be actually supernatural, but you're really getting the like witch hunt from her past story and what's going on present. It's all kind of paralleling each other. It's just really, really good. It's really interesting. I've still, with only probably 10 minutes of reading time left to go, still have no idea where this is going to go. Also, I'm in an even bigger, cozier jumper than yesterday, so this time of year really is my favourite.
I've been getting high in my basement. Another day goes by where I don't say.
And I finished. That is such an interesting book. Not the ending I expected. So many questions were left unanswered. So I still feel like I've got a lot to puzzle over in my mind. I think overall the book is making a point about who is perceived as being a witch, even in a modern context. But at the same time is not totally closing the door to the idea of actual witchcraft. Really recommend this for a spooky read, and not too spooky read if you're a wimp like me. Now I'm going to make myself a cozy dinner and watch Bake Off and go to sleep very, very early. For my next spooky, moody read, I'm going to go from a horror-adjacent novel with an ambiguous ending to a flat-out thriller. And I have read Fiona Cummins before, and her books have been so, so dark. She is not afraid to go places that some authors won't go. So I'm going to read Into the Dark, which is a thriller about a woman who goes over to her best friend's house to meet her for their morning run and finds that the whole family is gone. And there is a message scrawled on the mirror of the teenage daughter's bedroom, written in blood. And it says, "Make them stop." So what has happened? Something terrifying. This book might give me even more nightmares than a witchy book. Let's find out. Okay, so this is exciting. There is a character in here who previously featured in a different Fiona Cummins book that I read, The Collector, which is a super creepy series about a serial killer who collected bones, collected victims with like bone deformities. It was really, really creepy. And there was a teenager in there who we're now catching up with as an adult. He's now a detective constable. I can't fully remember the role that he played in that book, but I think he was like morally grey. I'm about to go into my volunteer shift, so no reading for the next few hours. But I will say about this book, I'm quite far into it now to not have much drive to like make my own theories yet at all. I just don't really have that much information to work with. I have a central mystery, which is this family who's gone missing. I have a bunch of shady characters and I'm getting insights into their past, their recent past and distant past, and the things that they have done, the things that might be catching up with them. But none of those things obviously fit together yet. And it's like quite late in the book. I'm over halfway through to have really no ideas at all. So I'm enjoying the book. It's like enough of a page turner, but I don't particularly think about it when I'm not reading it, if you see what I mean. Which is probably good, because that means I won't be distracted thinking about it during my volunteer shifts now. But in 2 hours, I'll pick back up. And hopefully, you know, I think I should have time to finish this one tonight and update you. I finished the book. I'm not totally convinced by this ending. Like I said, it was a good story, it was a good page turner, but it was slightly missing something that I've got from Fiona Cummins' other books. And I am going to, at the end of this video, do some recommendations for other books in the same genres, and I will recommend some other Fiona Cummins. But it was a fun read. I've decided to keep the video going because I wanted to read 3 books and get 3 different creepy genres. So I've done horror, I've done thriller, and I wanted to do dystopia. And I've got here a book called The Men by Sandra Newman, which is about a world from which men vanish completely, unexpectedly, and without a trace, and it follows what happens next. Right, so here's the thing. It is currently Thursday night. I slightly messed up and forgot to do any filming this week. I had really, really big plans that last night I was going to do a long reading session at home, and then I thought I'll just go out for one drink with my friends first, and the rest is history. But I am really enjoying this book. I haven't read a ton of it yet, but it's really, really interesting. There's the premise that I already told you about all of the men disappearing from the world, but we're following a few different female main characters, and they're also interesting and intriguing. There's one that's like the main character, and she clearly has this dark past that we don't know very much about, and the book is like not holding your hand through it in any way. It's just dropping in all these references to things that at some point I imagine will be made clear and will be explained. At the moment I've got no idea what any of it means, but that's quite fun. I like the way that it's written. I've read a book from Sandra Newman before, and it's reminding me of that. She has a very interesting way of telling a story. So I'm really enjoying it, and I am now actually going to do what I said I was going to do and read this book in this video. I have now made some really good headway with this book. I read tons last night. Raph watched a whole episode and a half of Game of Thrones while I read this book. Then I showed you the last clips of me going to the gym just to show off. Then I went. I'm really, really enjoying this book. I think it's great. I was absolutely hooked reading this one last night, and I read a big chunk. I'm over halfway through now. But what's funny is that when I was then like turning on the camera to update you, I was thinking, okay, what's happened that I'm gonna tell them about? And I realised that nothing's happened, which sounds wild for a book with such a high concept premise. And you're like, globally, loads has happened. So the men have all disappeared. There is this website that showed up where footage is being uploaded, this really mysterious footage that shows the men in this unknown place with strange creatures that are not like anything we have on Earth in the background. The men are acting like zombies. There's no sound, but you can see their mouths moving, but they're not making any words. It's really, really creepy. It's like nightmarish stuff. And some people are identifying people that they know in this footage. Some people think it's all a hoax. So like globally, a lot is happening. In the actual plot of the book, with the characters that we're following, very little has happened. Our main character, we have quite a few different characters, but our main character, basically what she's done so far is driven to San Francisco and reminisced about her past. And she has a very, very dramatic past. Like, that shit is dark, so there's a lot that we're learning. So, you know, I wouldn't say that nothing is happening in this book, but it's just interesting that I suddenly was like, in terms of the plot, ever since the men vanished, nothing has actually happened to our character. I don't know where this is going to go next, but I'm absolutely loving it. I think the writing is amazing. I think it's such a fresh take on this kind of book, because whenever I just say to someone when I'm reading and say, oh, it's a book where all the men vanish from the world, there have been other similar books like that. It's hard to convey from that premise how interesting this book actually is. So yeah, really, really enjoying it. Something that is quite funny that Raph pointed out to me this morning is I was telling her this morning about the fact that nothing has happened in this book and I love it, and then she just, after we had that conversation, went and watched my latest video, which I had just uploaded, which was the one where I read books that you had hated and that I had loved. And I said that a recurring theme was whenever someone tells me that a book, they didn't like it because nothing happened in it, I always love those books because I love books when nothing happens. So I'm just really proving my point. Okay, I was maybe wrong to say that nothing particularly was happening in the plot, because something so horrific just happened.
The boys turn a man from what they're shown, and the air that flows.
Okay, I've just finished this book. This book was so fucking weird. It is now midnight, and so it is too late and I'm too sleepy to try and explain it to you now. So I will tell you about it in the morning, but I've got no idea what even to think right now. Okay, I'm back. I've had all night to think about this book. I've spent quite a lot of time this morning looking up different reviews of it, reading interviews with the author. I still have no idea what happened in the ending. I will say that I loved this book. For the majority of the time I was reading it, I loved this book. It was really just the last kind of 20-30 pages that didn't work for me. It's got an ending that's a kind of, I'm not going to tell you what happens. There's a sort of like cliche joke ending that essentially happens, which I think lets the book down. And immediately before that, I've gone back and reread it twice now this morning, and I just don't understand what it means. So I feel like I'm massively missing something. However, overall I loved reading this book. It's so fucking weird. Before picking this book up, I had seen there was a bit of a controversy online about whether or not this book was transphobic, because it's about the men being taken and that goes along biological lines. So basically it's anyone with a Y chromosome vanishes. And that includes trans women, it includes non-binary people. And before the book even came out, there was a lot of talk about whether that was transphobic. Having read the book, I don't think that it was, because I think that's explored within the book, the unfairness of it. They have conversations about whether they should even be calling it the men who disappeared. I read an interview this morning with the author where she said that she doesn't think that her book conveys a belief in biological essentialism because she doesn't believe that at all. So yeah, I didn't think that it did. I do agree with some of the comments I read saying that it could have been explored more, because she explores a lot in this book about race. It feels very driven by a kind of a fear of what men can do to the world, and then after that a fear of what white women can do to the world. And I thought that was explored in so much depth that I do agree it feels slightly missed in a book that is ultimately about gender, or is about this sex-based phenomenon. She could have explored a little bit more about gender in there, but that would be the only criticism. I wouldn't say that the book was transphobic. Overall, I would definitely recommend this book. This was really, really fun reading experience. I thought for a lot of it that it was going to be a 5-star book because it was so wacky and like so compelling. Because of the ending, I can't give it 5 stars because I just didn't understand what it meant. If you read this book and you have a theory, I would love to know it. The next thing I want to say is I think, once again, we should keep this video going. I'm extending this so much further than I originally said I was going to do, but I've got one more book that I want to read this weekend, and I feel like it fits with our darker theme of books. This is How to Kill Your Family by Mackie, so I think we should keep going. I picked this book up because my book club is reading it, and I was really excited about it just because I love the title. Ever since I said I was going to read it, quite a few of you in the comments have said that you didn't really like it. My favourite comment was from someone who said they were very disappointed that it wasn't actually a how-to manual. But it's about a woman called Grace Bernard who is a daughter, sister, and serial killer. I'm actually really enjoying the book so far. I haven't made a ton of headway, but I think it's really fun. But I'm going to stop reading now because we are going to watch the Arsenal women's team play Spurs. My dad will be very cross if he sees me wearing this.
It's not over, no, it's only just begun. I used to have a way with words, but now I trip over my tongue, yeah.
Arsenal won 4-0. That was very exciting. Of course, 4 goals, and I didn't manage to get a single one of them on camera, but that was really fun and really nice atmosphere there. And also, we especially loved that the 2 first players to score were going out with each other. So we went to celebrate. On the way home, we went to Book Bar, bought myself a new book, even though I still haven't made much headway with the one I'm supposed to be reading right now. Our next mission for the day, a really fun mission, we're going to a sofa workshop because we're going to buy Raph a new sofa. By sofa workshop, I meant sofa showroom. I don't know what a sofa workshop would be. Would that be where you make your own sofas? That's not what we're doing.
We're just kicking bricks, yeah, that's just how it is. Some parts never get fixed, yeah, that's just how it is. Can you say you love me? Now can you say it with a straight face?
Oh, I look like an actual clown. There's something I can do about that. And the fun continues because now we're off to the cinema to watch the Harry Styles movie. Don't Worry Darling, that's had all the drama. I cannot wait. The Don't Worry Darling drama has consumed every waking second of my thoughts for the last few months. I have a theory that this movie doesn't actually exist and that the drama has been the movie. Thank you so much. I've run out of things to say now, so I'm gonna go to the cinema. Goodbye! This is my favourite type of Sunday morning, when you can just wake up early and read. I've got nowhere to be for hours, so it's just me and my book. And my serious readers liked. We went to see Don't Worry Darling last night. I thought it was really good. There's been so much talk around this movie, so many rumours, one of them being the movie is like the worst thing you've ever seen. I thought it was really good. It was really fun. I was really tense. I was really hooked. There were some bits that didn't quite add up, but I'm sure if I spend enough time today watching TikToks, I will have all of the answers to how clever the movie really was. I thought it was great. But now don't disturb me, it's reading time. Okay, I've dragged myself from my bed and I'm going to do some washing up, some cooking, some watering my very dead plants, all while listening to the audiobook. I haven't made it very far into How to Kill Your Family yet, but so far, the 2 chapters that I've read, I'm loving this premise. It does what it says on the tin. She's setting out to kill her whole family. I have just suffered a trauma. I don't know what to do. So I just saw on the ground in a box what looked like a very, very big but very, very dead spider. That already freaked me out enough. I don't like spiders. How was that ever in my house? But it looked, I like poked the box a few times with my foot. It did not move. It looked very, very dead. So I picked up the box and tipped it into the bin. And the second it went into the bin, the spider sprung to life and is huge. Like when it stops looking dead and comes back to life, it's so big and it's like crawling around. So I just slammed the bin lid shut. But now it's in my bin. What do I do? What do I do? I can't get it out of there. I'm gonna have to move. I'm gonna take the whole bin outside. Okay, here's what I've done. I have put another bin bag over the top of this lid so that this bin is now sealed inside a bin bag. So the spider can't get out. And then I'm just gonna have a separate bag to be in my bin until I can get someone to come around and take that bin out. Oh my god, the things that I do to avoid ever seeing a spider. You should have heard the noise that came out of my mouth when the spider's done moving. The neighbours downstairs probably think I got murdered. Okay, back to cooking. Calm down, Emma. I'm being so productive. I've done so many house tasks. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna cook some more meals and put them into Tupperware for packed lunches. Who am I? A domestic goddess. It does feel quite funny being so wholesome and doing all of my chores while listening to a story about someone just murdering their family. Every single one of them. One really cool thing that I haven't showed you yet about my light, which I am now carrying over my shoulder like Dick Whittington on his way to London, is that you can specify loads of things about it, including whether or not you want it to be wireless. And I got a wireless one, so I can just carry it wherever I want. I just need to choose my coziest spot. No phone calls, reality, never to phone. It's coming towards the end of Sunday, so I thought I would do some book recommendations based on the books that I've been reading in this video. The first book you saw me read was Hare, which is a kind of modern, witchy, ghosty story, which I really, really enjoyed, even though I didn't get the ending. For similar vibes, I've got 3 very different books to recommend here, depending on what part of Hare you enjoyed or like the sound of just from hearing me talk about it. So in terms of the unnamed narrator coming to this grand house where the inhabitants are haunted by the people that used to live there, you can't go wrong with Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a classic. I read it at school. I have read it several times since, most recently about a year ago, 2 years ago, and it really holds up. This book is incredible. I remembered a lot of the twists of this book, but I hadn't remembered every detail, and it surprised me all over again how tense I felt while reading it. Also how terrifying some of the characters are. The character of Mrs. Danvers, for example, is such a terrifying presence in the house. So even though it's not a supernatural book, it will give you a lot of those really creepy vibes. I kept being reminded of the upstairs room while reading Hare because of things like this haunted house, writing being discovered on the walls. You're never quite sure if the house is haunted or if the main character is kind of losing their mind, and that reminded me of the upstairs room, which I thought was such a good book. This is about a family who move into a new house, a kind of Victorian house, and very quickly things start to go wrong with the family, and the mother of this family is convinced that it is the house itself which is making her ill. No one else in the family believes her, and even you as the reader aren't sure what to think. Is the family actually this malevolent presence in their lives, or is the seeming haunting just kind of reflecting their lives crumbling? It's a really clever book. And finally, Pine. I thought the Hare House was very reminiscent of Pine. This is a book that I gave 5 stars to. It is also set in Scotland. It is also horror tinged rather than full horror. It is also a kind of modern gothic story. This one is about a father and daughter who are trying to work out what happened to the mother who went missing many years before, and they are still haunted by her. So those are my recommendations based on Hare House. I would say that Pine is probably like the most similar of those. The next book I read was Into the Dark by Fiona Cummins, if you're looking for a more straightforward thriller without the supernatural elements. And I enjoyed this one, but as you saw, never got like fully gripped by it. I would absolutely recommend a different one of Fiona Cummins's books. I've chosen The Neighbour here, which is a thriller that I gave 5 stars to, and that's very rare for me. I loved this book. I thought it was so clever. It's about a town where there is a serial killer on the loose, and it really creeped me out. There's some really freaky little details, like the victims are found with buttons in their eyes. It's like they're being made into puppets, and you do not know who to trust because it keeps changing perspective. You go around, you meet all of the neighbours living in this community, and all of them have things to hide. So throughout reading the book, I think I suspected every single one of them at one point or the other. And actually, you've heard me recommend it before, but my all-time favourite example of just a really good straightforward thriller is I Let You Go by Claire Mcintosh. This was also a 5-star thriller for me. This is a book with such a good twist, so I have to be really careful about how to explain it. It begins with a terrible accident and a woman forced to run away from her grief over this thing that happened, but her past is going to catch up with her. There's such a vague description, but honestly I think that's all you should know. This book is quite a slow start. It's more about her grief at the beginning, and then halfway through something is revealed which tips it into thriller territory, and I think it's such a good example of a thriller. Then I read The Men by Sandra Newman, which I really did love, except for the ending, which really let it down for me. But the things I loved about this book were the weirdness of it, as well as the dystopian element. So a very obvious comparison would be The Power by Naomi Alderman, which is quite a divisive book. It was a very popular book, but now I only ever seem to hear people criticizing it. I loved this book. I thought it was amazing. I liked that it didn't do what I expected with this premise. I think that's why a lot of people didn't enjoy it, is because they liked the idea of a book about women getting this power, and they had an idea in their head of where that was going to go. And this book does something very different, and I really liked that. I thought this was brilliant. So The Men and the Power are pretty similar, and they take these like big feminist high concept premises and then take them in very strange directions. I think The Men is a lot weirder than The Power though, so for something else weird like that, I really recommend Severance by Lingma. This was fantastic. This is a zombie apocalypse novel that I loved. I would never read a zombie apocalypse novel. They never actually use the word zombies. It's actually about a pandemic. And weirdly, I read this book in January 2020. And then so when all the news reports started coming in, it felt so reminiscent of this book. So that freaked me out a lot. But it is about a pandemic that spreads the world, and essentially the results of this virus is turning people into zombie-like figures. It is much more a satire on contemporary life than it is a zombie apocalypse, like action-packed novel. So manage your expectations appropriately for that. I thought it was weird and wonderful, and I was hooked. And finally, I haven't yet finished How to Kill Your Family. I am just over halfway through now. Really enjoying it so far. I think it's really funny, and I've got a very obvious comparison, but that is You by Caroline Kepner. Both of these books have serial killer main characters who you are weirdly drawn to, who you weirdly love and are rooting for, even as you know they're doing terrible things. The main character in You is a character called Joe, who is absolutely terrifying, and actually the fact that so many women say they kind of have fallen in love with him as a character, even before he was played by the very good-looking Penn Badgley, women loved Joe, and that is terrifying because he's not a good person, not at all. But everything that he does is kind of dressed up in this like faux feminism. He's very charming, he's very charismatic, and he really seems to believe that he is doing the right thing and that he has these women's interests at heart. And it's very easy to get like sucked up in that. The main character in How to Kill Your Family is kind of similar, so she does at least admit that the murders she's carrying out come from a place of revenge, but she also does think she's doing good deeds by ridding the world of this toxicity. So in both of these books you find yourself rooting for the murderer, which is a very uncomfortable place to be, but I think that's what makes these books really fun. So there you go, a range of dark reading recommendations in all these different genres I've been reading across for you to read in these dark long nights. And I finished the book, which means I think it is time to finally draw this vlog to an end, a full week after I originally had planned to. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a very unlikable but hilarious to be inside her mind main character. There was a twist ending, which I will say I didn't love. I found it frustrating, but I do think it was the perfect ending for this book. I finished it just in time for my book club, and most of us were in agreement that we all really enjoyed this. One of my friends had a criticism which was that there was not enough murder, which, considering there are 7 dead bodies in this book, is kind of a hilarious critique. I really enjoyed it. I'd really recommend it as a fun, very easy, dark read. So that was 4 dark, moody, cozy books that I've read over the last week. I'm actually going straight into another because I'm going to reread Luckiest Girl Alive, which is another thriller. You can tell the type of reading mood I'm in at the moment. But I've loved having you along with me this week. And once again, don't forget to use my code DBMS12 if you would like to buy one of the Serious Readers lights, because if you use my code, then you get a free compact light with your purchase. So I'll put all the information that you need for that in the description box below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you next time.